Hey guys, what's up everyone? Welcome back to a new video. It's been a while since I've released the last Kali Linux video, and it's definitely been too long since I recorded a top things to do after installing Kali Linux video. I think the last one was from 2019, so it's way past time to update that. With that being said, this is the top things to do after installing Kali Linux in 2023. As you guys know, we always provide articles that go along with our videos, and this is no different. In case you didn't install Kali Linux yet and you want to try that out, we have several tutorials up on the YouTube channel as well as on the website cosec.com. And if you just head over to the website, I'll leave a link in the video description below, and you go to learn and you choose cybersecurity, you will find all the Kali Linux things that you ever need. So here's a couple of things that you could look into that are one of the most popular articles. And you will also find all of the how to install videos. So we have how to install Kali Linux on VirtualBox. We have how to install Kali Linux in dual boot with Windows 10 and 11. And we also have how to install Kali Linux on VMware. And of course, how to install Kali Linux on a laptop. If you want to use a laptop solely for Kali Linux, we have a complete step-by-step tutorial on that as well. The top things to do after installing Kali Linux article can also be found there, and I'll leave a link in the description below too. So I highly recommend you guys pull up this article to go along with the video, because you can just scroll down to the steps. I will go through all of these steps in this video now, and if you want to follow along, then you can just scroll down and copy and paste all of the syntax that I'm going to use throughout this video. So this might be helpful for you to pull up on the side while you follow through with this video. Alright, with that out of the way, let's get right started. Since most of you will probably run Kali Linux on VirtualBox as well, the first thing I recommend you do after installing Kali Linux freshly, even without updating it in anything, just to be sure, is to take a snapshot. And I don't know why VirtualBox has moved that snapshot button from here. I was actually just searching it for a while. To here, you have to click on those three through this hamburger menu, and then you can go to snapshots. And then you can take a snapshot. And what I usually like to do is, right after installing Kali Linux, I just do a snapshot with fresh install. Now you can choose to do this snapshot after you have configured, updated, etc. your Kali Linux install if you want to. I just take one now because I will need it anyway. And we're gonna probably take another one later on in this video. So now I just do fresh install, freshly installed Kali Linux, and I just hit OK. And now it took a snapshot, and in case something gets messed up throughout this whole process, when we install some tools, etc., then we can just head back to this freshly installed state without the need of reinstalling Kali Linux altogether. So this is the first time I start up this Kali instance, and if it's the first time you boot that up, the default login is Kali, and the password is Kali as well. So it's Kali for the login. And once you click login, you should automatically have full screen mode available to you. It comes pre-installed in the Kali Linux VM that I downloaded from the Kali Linux website. I actually didn't install it, I imported it, and that is also the same thing we do in the how to install Kali Linux on VirtualBox video that we have up. So if you follow that video before following this video, you will be in the same state that I am now in. And so this is a freshly installed version of Kali Linux, as I said. In case full screen doesn't work, go ahead and maximize or minimize and maximize the screen a couple of times. This usually does the trick. Alright, so before I do anything, usually, because I'm sitting on a German keyboard here on a keyboard layout, and some of you will watch this video from all over the world, so you probably want to change that too before you end up figuring out what keys to press to type in certain syntax. So the easiest way to do that is to go through the GUI here, and let's just head to the settings. And then we go to keyboard settings. So you go settings, and then you find keyboard, or you just type in keyboard here in the search bar. And you can see I press the Y key on my German keyboard and the Z comes up, and that's exactly why I want to change that first. So I click on keyboard here, and then I click on layout, and you can see this is the English one. And you have to remove this use system defaults thing, and then you can choose a different layout, and you click on the add button here. And in my case, I'm just gonna choose the German one. Where is it? There it is. German, and I have no idea which one to take here because they have so many. I'll just take, is there not a normal German one? That acute sounds good. Okay, whatever. Let's try this one. And then you have to move your new keyboard up to the top to have it as a default keyboard. And you can, of course, then remove the other one that was in there before. And now if I press the Y button, Y should actually be typed out. So this is the first thing I usually like to do. There's another way doing that. If you prefer the terminal way, you can open up your terminal up here. Let's quickly pull that up here in the middle, because that's what we're gonna need again in a second. Just making that bigger for you so you guys can actually read something, and zoom in. There we go. So the other thing you can do is you can type out sudo dp kg reconfigure keyboard minus configuration. And then you enter the sudo password, which is still Kali. We're going to change that in a second. And then the keyboard configuration tool comes up in the shell. And then again, this is just generic PC. This is the first option here. Just press OK. And then you can choose, again, that's what we just did. You go on other if you have some other keyboard, some other language keyboard layout. And then you scroll down. In my case, it's German. And then again, I have all those options here again, and I'm just gonna choose the same because it looked like it works. Okay, okay, and this usually the default for the keyboard layout. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave that as it is. Press OK and tap and OK and tap and OK and just go through that. No, I'm just gonna leave that as default, and it should still work. Yeah, that's the German keyboard that I'm used to. Okay, so this was the first step. Let's move on to the next one. The next thing I like to do is to completely update and upgrade the system. Now, if you just have freshly downloaded, maybe even a weekly build of the VirtualBox image from the Kali website, you probably don't need to do that, but just to make sure, I like to do it anyway. So we do sudo apt and update -y to not have to enter another prompt, and then we do 2 and signs here, and then we do sudo apt upgrade -y as well, and then it's downloading the latest update packages and tells us probably that a bunch of packages have to be updated. Let's see. All right, so it updated the apt repository here. And then it's starting to update all the packages. And as you can see, this is gonna take a while depending on your internet connection. I'm downloading with about 6 megabytes per second at this moment. So you can see that quite a lot of packages are going to be updated. So we let that to finish, and then we continue from there. After or during the upgrade process, when the packages are actually getting installed, sometimes you get some questions if you want some services to be updated or restarted or whatever. And I just walk you through that. And I usually choose here restart services during package upgrades without asking yes, because I don't want to be asked every time that I restart a service. And usually that's fine on a fresh install anyway, because you probably don't have anything running in the background right after you install Kali Linux. So we let that finish. You can see the download has finished, and now it's installing and upgrading the packages, which is gonna take another while. While this is installing, just a little plug for you guys, for everyone who is interested in learning Python. We are currently heavily investing time in our Python category. If you go to seosec.com, you're going to learn on Python. You find a whole series on Python tutorials, and we are just in the process of putting together a whole beginner tutorial on how to get started with Python programming. Because Python programming is something that everybody who is into cybersecurity or ethical hacking or bug bounties should know at least the basics of, and we try to put something together that makes it really, really easy to learn the Python programming languages. All of our tutorials come with a written article, with a Replit repository, so you can directly code along with us while we go through, and as well as with a video, of course. And you probably have seen a couple of Python videos popping up on the channel lately. So this is just a little plug for that. If you want to get into Python, this is a great way on how to get started with that. All right, the update and upgrade process has finished, and just for good measure, we are going to do a reboot. So we do sudo reboot now, and then we enter the password once more because we did a major update and upgrade. So it's just good practice to do a quick reboot before we continue with the tutorial. Okay, we are back. Let's log right back into Kali, and the next thing we want to do is to change the default passwords. And this is an important step. Don't ever leave your password as default, especially not on Kali Linux, because everybody knows the default password for Kali Linux Let's drag that up and make it a lot bigger. So to change the default password of your Kali user, we do passwd, and then you enter the current password, which is Kali, and you enter your new passwords twice. Oh yeah, it tells me now to choose a longer password, so let's do that. Okay, now we have the password updated for the default user, and I'm going to show you how to create a new user in a second in case you don't want to use the default Kali user, but let's continue with this first. So the next thing we want to do is we want to also change the default root password, which is still Kali at this point. So we do sudo passwd root to change the password for the root user. Now the sudo password is then your new password that I just mistyped. Okay, that's the new password we just set up, and now you can choose to either choose a different root password or the same password that you use for your user, and now we have both passwords updated. Now, since this took quite a while, we can go ahead and take another snapshot now, so that in case something goes wrong now we can revert back to a working state. So click on machine up here on the left in the VirtualBox menu and click on take snapshot, and then I do fresh install plus update and upgrade, and that's all I'm gonna do here. And now we have two snapshots, one right after installing Kali Linux and one after updating and upgrading it, and it just takes a few seconds here. The next thing we want to check and make sure is if the shared clipboard and drag and drop are enabled. That's meaning that you can copy something from your host machine. So if you run that on Windows, you can go ahead and copy something from the browser or whatever and paste it inside of your VM. You can also drag and drop files between the VM and your host, but the setting needs to be enabled. In the newer versions of VirtualBox, that's enabled per default, but we just want to make sure that this is actually still the case. So we go on devices in the VirtualBox menu here, and then we go to shared clipboard, and that should be set to bidirectional. That's already set, and drag and drop the same should be set to bidirectional. Both is set, so we should be able to copy and paste something from our host machine to Kali Linux on the virtual machine, and we just tested. I'm just gonna copy one word from the article, and I'm gonna try to paste it, paste clipboard, and it is in fact working. So I just copied that from my host machine. All right. I've mentioned it, and let's just do it right now. We are going to create a new user in case you don't want to use the default Kali user. Now, there is nothing wrong using the default Kali user. It's more of a, do you want to have your name there or not? Or you want to have your own username there or not? Perfectly fine to use the default Kali user for most of us, but in case you want to know how to do that, this is how you do it. So to create a new user, you do sudo add user and then username. So I'm doing Ezoic here. And then you set the password for that user as well. Okay, and then you can either enter a name or leave that all empty. I'm just gonna enter my name. And then we can see that adding the new user to supplemental extra groups and adding Ezoic to group users. Now the thing is, since we create a new user, we can also check if the user was created, and we can see that the home folder here for the new Ezoic user was in fact created. Now we need to also add our Ezoic user or our new user to the sudoers group, because otherwise if you log in with the new user here now, then you are not able to run sudo commands because we are not added to the sudoers group. And to do that, clear the screen here, we do sudo usermod minus small lowercase a and capital G, and then sudo user name, which is our user that we created. I think that's the user. So this is your username that you put in there, and then it is added to the list. And now we need to set the path for bash, and to do that we do sudo chsh -s/bin/bash, and then again your username, and that should be added. Now we should be all set, and we can log in with our new user. To do that, we click on this logout button in the upper right corner, and we go on, you can either go switch user or you can go to logout. Let's do logout. And now we should be able to log in with our new user. And okay, that's working. It's the first login, it usually takes a little bit longer. But we are in now, and if we pull up the terminal, we can in fact see that we are now logged in with our new user that we just created, which is Ezoic in that case. And to make sure that the sudo command works, we do sudo apt update, and then we enter the password, and it should allow us to run a update of the apt repository here. Let's give that a second. Yes, that works. So it says again 3 packages can be upgraded, so we could do sudo apt upgrade again, but for the sake of this video, I'm not going to do that now. One more thing we can do is to clean things up after all the upgrading thing is what I usually like to do. That's the auto remove feature, which removes old packages that we no longer need. And to do that, we can just simply run sudo apt auto remove -y. And then we see that 203 megabytes of disk space will be freed up because of the upgrade process that we went through earlier. We now have some old packages lying around that we don't need anymore. And this is basically like an auto clean feature. Just keeps things tidy, and I recommend you to run that command. Takes a little while, but should be done rather quickly. 99% sounds good. And there's another option, just in case, so that you know that in case you downloaded or you have already installed a lower version of Kali Linux. Let's say you installed Kali Linux release 2022.1 and you want to upgrade to the latest one without reinstalling it. You could also do sudo apt dist -upgrade, and in my case there shouldn't be any upgrade available. So this is just a minor, that's just the 3 upgraded packages here because I'm on the latest version. But if you are on a lower version, let's say 2022.1, and you want to upgrade to the latest as of now, which is 2022.3, then it would offer you this upgrade as well. And therefore you could upgrade your whole operating system to the latest rolling release, just as a side note. All right, let's move on. Next up, we are going to install a drop-down terminal called Guake terminal, which I'm still using if I'm on Kali because it's very convenient to quickly pull up and down a terminal. And if you remember games like Quake 3 Arena or something, where you could, or old games even like Doom, where you could press the tilde key, which is this one, tilde, I think it's tilde or whatever it's called, and you could pull out a drop-down terminal, and I really like using that on Kali Linux. So we are going to install Guake terminal, which is done by sudo apt install Guake, which is kind of a name hint to Quake. I've researched, and it's a really cool tool here. So we have installed that, and now we need to also set that up to start automatically every time you reboot your system. And to do that, I'm just gonna copy and paste the line here, and that's why I recommend you to pull up the article to follow along. So I'm gonna paste it in, and this is the command. We do sudo copy, and then we copy some things into the auto start of Kali, into the auto start folder. And if you reboot now or the next time, Guake will start automatically. But we can start it manually for now. So we just go and open our menu here, and this allows us to search for Guake, and then you can just click on run Guake, and I have no idea how to pronounce that word, so it's a little bit stupid. And then if you press the F12 key per default, that's the default key that is set up, you see that the drop-down terminal comes down, which is exactly the same shell like here, but it just looks different. And you can also zoom in with Control+ here. And now you can always use this terminal. And the default key to do that is F12. And if you want to have it a little bit more old school, like in Quake or something, you can right-click here and click on Preferences, which should open up a lot of preferences that you can adjust here. And I'm gonna just drag that over this window. There we go. It's a little bit small. I try to zoom in as best as I can during editing. And you can change a lot of things here, but the only thing I really want to change is probably the appearance, at least for me, to have it look different. It can be translucent. You can adjust the transparency for the terminal. And I think if you pull that down, it's live updating here. So you can see that you can make that more translucent. Then you also have to change the font color and stuff like this. But what I want to show you is the keyboard shortcuts, and you can change the default keyboard shortcut to the tilde key. So then you have it really like in an old school shooter game where you can just press the tilde key and pull down your terminal. Now, why is this useful? This is useful, I think, because when you're working in different programs and you have a lot of tools open, then it's kind of cumbersome to always have to open up a terminal, which is basically overlaying over your windows. You need to drag it around and stuff. But if you just have this key that you can press and you can be directly in your terminal, it's really, really convenient, especially since this has a tab feature here. So you can open as many tabs as you want. And you can work in multiple tabs. You can make this window also bigger, of course. You can set it up in the options that you drag it down all the way on the screen. You can set it up how you want it, so I would highly recommend you looking through those options. It's a really, really cool feature that I'm still using today. The next step in this tutorial I want to talk about is customizing your terminal, and I'm having the website open here because I want to show you what I'm talking about. If you go to the website and you go and learn and WSL2, I give you an example of how my terminal looks like. Now I will not go through everything here in this video, how to configure that. I actually have a whole Udemy course on how to set that up. But here is a free tutorial series. It's a 3-part series. As you can see here, there's part 1, part 3 and part 2. It's according to how I updated these articles. But if you start with part 1, you can create the same terminal. You can actually do those steps, or at least some of them, inside of Kali Linux with your shell. And what I'm talking about is I have this terminal that looks like this, and I can get the same on Kali Linux, but it would be way out of scope for this video to do that now inside of the video. But this is like a translucent shell with everything customized, with customized things set up, and you can see that it adapts the color of the background with some nice acrylic effects, and that looks really nice, especially if you have like a nice background here, like the Kali logo. Let me just drag that over here. Okay, so you can see that it's a really, really nice terminal to work in. And if you want to know how to set that up, I highly recommend you checking that out. And I'm basically only using the terminal, the WSL2 shell on Windows for both ethical hacking and web development. I'm rarely using Kali Linux in a virtual machine anymore because this is much faster. And since I'm working in the shell only, I don't need any GUI tools. This is more convenient for me to use. But again, you can get your terminal inside of Kali Linux, so the default terminal here. You can get that looking almost exactly like this if you follow some of the customization steps in those tutorials. Next up, installing your favorite code editor. Now, I think the most popular code editor right now, and in my opinion the best one, is VSCode. And there is a possibility to install VSCode on Kali Linux. It just involves a couple of manual steps. Now, I have all those steps inside of the written article, and there's also a separate article if you Google how to install VSCode on Kali Linux, or you go to our website, then you find detailed instructions here. But regardless, I'm going to show you how to do that. So open up Firefox and then go to the website. Just open the main website here. Is code.visualstudio.com/download. And once you are there, you want to download the .deb for Debian and Ubuntu package. And that should just take a couple of seconds. I think it's 100 megabytes or something. Firefox is still a bit sluggish since this is the first time I started up Firefox. Probably installing some updates. Okay, that looks good. It downloaded. And then we're gonna open up our terminal again. We cd into our downloads folder. And then we're gonna run the command to install it, which is sudo apt install // and then you just type code and hit the tab button, and then it should automatically fill that in for you guys. And then it's installing it. Probably downloading some additional stuff, or maybe not. Looks like it's just installing it. And this is a really easy way on how to install VS Code. There are a bunch of tutorials out there that overcomplicate things by a stretch, but this is basically it, how you install VS Code on Kali Linux. Couldn't be any easier. Okay, so we have that installed. We can clear that off. And then we click on File. No, not on File, on the Start menu here. And then we don't see VS Code. Let's type in Visual, and there it is, Visual Studio Code. Let's open it up and see if it actually works. Or if you need to follow any complicated process to make it work. No, you don't. VS Code successfully installed on Kali Linux with the run of a single command. All right, let's move on. Guys, so the next steps in this guide or in this article are more of in-depth steps, and all of these next steps basically include you following a different article, and for each of those steps there is a different video available as well. So we have a video on how to install OpenVAS and all of the other things. Now this would be way out of scope for this video, so I'm just going through the next steps that I basically included in the article, and you can choose or not to follow along with them because those are lengthy steps, especially installing OpenVAS, which is an open source vulnerability scanner. So you can choose if you want to follow them or not, but it would be making this video way too long. So the next step I recommend here is installing OpenVAS. Like I said, a popular open source vulnerability scanner used by many, and probably something you want to look into if you haven't looked into it yet. And there is a detailed article linked here on how to install OpenVAS on Kali Linux. And you can see this article is very, very long. So if you want to install that, I recommend you to look through that. Now the next thing is of course installing your favorite tools, and this is different for everyone. Since Burp Suite and all the stuff is already pre-installed on Kali Linux, you can save yourself from installing that. But there are a bunch of tools listed that I usually install on a fresh installation of Kali Linux. Things like AMS, Subfinder, Asset Finder, FAF, and so on and so forth. But all of these tools can be installed pretty easily if you just go to the GitHub pages. If you need specific tutorials on how to install all of those tools, let me know. I'll provide one for each of them on how to install them on Kali Linux. This is basically just a selection of tools I would go and install on a fresh installation. So I would definitely go for Chrome. Firefox is already installed, and KeePass for all of your logins and stuff like this. Probably would use Cherry Tree for documentation and stuff like this. Now the next step in here is setting up a VPN, and I know that all of you are using different kind of VPNs. I like NordVPN. I'm not sponsored by them, but I am an affiliate. So if you choose to install NordVPN, you can click on this NordVPN link to get a little bit of a discount there if you try to sign up for that. And basically the instructions are right here on how to install that. This is a step-by-step instruction how to download, install, and log in, and then you can use NordVPN. I found it to be one of the best solutions for Kali Linux because it's really fast and working well. The last step in here, guys, is really just educate yourself further from this. Now this guide will be updated every year, but probably the basics will stay the same. I don't think that they will change major things in Kali Linux that would make this guide obsolete anytime soon. So I will keep adding tools to that. I will keep updating this video and this article once a year. That's for the video. The article gets updated all the time. But there's basically just some stuff that you can look into at the end of this article, which is my favorite hacking courses down here by the Cyber Mentor. The Practical Ethical Hacking course by him is still one of my favorite hacking courses of all time. And of course, check out our YouTube channel where there are regular videos on programming and cybersecurity. With all that being said, guys, just make sure you know what you're doing when you're using things like Kali Linux. And as for me, I have videos up on the YouTube channel and articles on the website on how to install Kali Linux even with GUI in WSL2, so you don't need to run any kind of virtual machine, you don't need to boot anything up, you just click on the icon here, and I will link all of that in this very article so that you guys can pull up all those resources and maybe check out some alternatives that suit you better and just play around with things to find your favorite. Yeah, I think that's it for this video, guys. I hope it was helpful for you. Give me any feedback in the comment section below, and definitely make sure to regularly check on the website because we are publishing articles almost daily. Alright guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you back in the next one.